The meeting room was enormous. Jake Morrison had never seen anything like it in his life. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Around him, thousands of alien beings filled the space. Some floated in special bubbles. Others stood on platforms designed for their specific needs. The air buzzed with strange sounds as computers translated hundreds of different languages all at once. Jake wore his best uniform. The dark blue fabric was clean and pressed. Next to him, Sophie Bennett checked their presentation one more time. Her hands shook slightly. They were both nervous. This was the biggest moment in human history. They were the first humans to speak to the Galactic Council. The council leader was tall and covered in silver scales. 4 bright eyes looked down at Jake. The creature's name was impossible to pronounce in English. The translation computer called it Silverwing. Silverwing raised one long arm and the noise in the room stopped. Everyone became quiet. Jake stepped forward. His voice was carried through speakers all around the massive room. He told them about Earth. He talked about how humans had started as small groups of people in caves. He explained how they had learned to work together, to build cities, to create technology. He spoke about their dream of reaching the stars and meeting other intelligent life. He told them that humans wanted to join the galactic community, to learn from older civilizations and to help where they could. What Jake did not know was that most of the aliens in the room were not impressed. Many of them felt sorry for humans. Some were actually afraid. Earth was listed in their databases as a dangerous world, a death world. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too violent. Even the plants could kill you if you ate the wrong ones. Predators hunted prey every day. Nature was brutal and unforgiving. Most species in the council came from gentle worlds. The Velkari, Silverwing's people, evolved on a planet where the most dangerous animal was a small creature with soft spikes. They ate plants and ran away when scared. The idea of hunting, of killing to eat, was something the Velkari only knew from books. It seemed primitive and scary to them. After Jake finished talking, a scientist named Ven stood up. Ven was thin and green with large eyes. He worked for the council studying different species. Ven began to explain what they had learned about humans. He showed pictures of Earth's predators, lions, sharks, bears. Then he showed how humans had evolved. He pointed out their forward-facing eyes, perfect for tracking prey. He explained how ancient humans could run for hours and hours chasing animals until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. He talked about human teeth designed to eat both meat and plants. He described the human digestive system, which could process almost any organic material. The room became uncomfortable. Many species shifted nervously. Several delegates came from prey animals. To them, humans looked like the monsters from their nightmares. Forward-facing eyes, strong bodies, a history of violence and hunting. These were apex predators, top of the food chain on their world. But the council believed in progress. They thought that any species smart enough to build spaceships had moved beyond their violent past. They decided to give humans a chance. Humans would be allowed to join the council, but with restrictions. They would be assigned to safe areas of space. They would be watched carefully. They would be protected from the dangerous parts of the galaxy, like children who needed guidance. Silverwing announced the decision. Humanity was accepted into the council with provisional membership. They would have limited voting rights. They would need permission for military actions. They would be required to follow strict protocols about weapon systems. The council would help them, guide them, keep them safe. Jake accepted these terms with a smile and a bow. He thanked the council for their wisdom and generosity. Sophie stood beside him, also smiling. But inside, both of them felt something else. They understood what was really happening. The council was not treating humans as equals. They were treating them like dangerous children, like pets that might bite. As they left the council chamber, Sophie whispered to Jake. She asked if he was angry about the restrictions. Jake shook his head. He was not angry. He understood why the council was nervous. Humans did come from a violent world. They had fought and killed to survive for thousands of years. But he also knew something the council did not understand yet. Being a predator did not mean being a monster. Humans had learned to control their violent instincts. They had learned to work together, to protect the weak, to build instead of destroy. Yes, they could be dangerous. Yes, they could fight when needed. But they could also be gentle, creative, and compassionate. The council would learn this eventually. Jake just hoped it would not take too long. The news spread across Earth quickly. Humanity had been accepted into the galactic community. Celebrations erupted in every city. People danced in the streets. Fireworks lit up the sky. Children dreamed of traveling to alien worlds. Scientists prepared to learn from civilizations millions of years old. Earth's government began planning colonies in their assigned space sectors. But some people were not entirely happy. Military leaders looked at the restrictions and frowned. They understood the reality of space. It was not safe. Pirates existed. Raiders attacked peaceful ships. Criminal organizations operated in the shadows. And the Council's peacekeeping forces were spread thin across thousands of systems. Their response times were slow. Sometimes they did not respond at all. Admiral Lisa Cole sat in her office on Earth reading the Council protocols. She was humanity's top military commander. She had spent 30 years keeping Earth's colonies safe. She knew how to fight, how to protect people, how to make hard decisions. The Council's rules worried her. They were written by species that had never faced real danger. Species that thought violence was always wrong, that every problem could be solved with words and patience. Lisa hoped the Council was right. She hoped the galaxy was as safe as they claimed. But she also knew human history. She knew that predators existed everywhere. Not just animals, but intelligent beings who chose to hurt others for profit or pleasure. The universe was big and dark and full of threats. And when those threats came, as she suspected they would, humanity would need to be ready. She began quietly preparing. Nothing that would violate Council rules, but nothing that would leave humans defenseless either. She ordered the construction of new defensive stations in their assigned sectors. She increased training for security forces. She made sure every human colony had basic defensive capabilities. The Council might see humans as children who needed protection, but Lisa Cole would make sure humans could protect themselves if needed. 6 months passed. Human colonies were established in 3 systems. Trade began with nearby alien worlds. Human traders learned to navigate galactic markets. Human scientists exchanged information with alien researchers. Human children attended schools with alien classmates. Slowly, carefully, humanity began to find its place among the stars. And far away, in the dark reaches of space where the Council's light did not reach, dangerous beings watched these new humans with interest. Some saw opportunity, some saw weakness, and some would soon learn a very important lesson about what it meant to threaten an apex predator. Kepler Station floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a massive gas giant on the edge of human territory. The station was not large by galactic standards, but it was well run. Commander Greg Patterson made sure of that. Every system worked properly. Every safety protocol was followed. Every person on board knew their job and did it well. Greg had 40 human crew members and about 80 alien workers and traders. The station had become popular in just 6 months. Traders liked stopping at Kepler because it was safe and efficient. Crime was almost zero. Disputes were handled quickly and fairly. The fuel was good quality and reasonably priced. Word spread fast in the trading community. Kepler Station was a good place to do business. Some aliens found humans unsettling. Their eyes looked straight ahead like hunters. They moved with confident purpose. They watched everything carefully. But most traders appreciated these qualities. Stations run by prey species were often chaotic. Security was lax. Criminals operated openly. But not at Kepler Station. The humans kept order, and everyone benefited from that. Kate Hughes was Greg's second in command. She was shorter than Greg, but just as tough. She had served in Earth's Navy for 10 years before volunteering for frontier duty. She liked the challenge of managing a station on the edge of civilized space. She also liked working with Greg, who trusted her judgment and gave her real responsibility. Kate often joked with the crew that criminals avoided Kepler because humans scared them. One look at humanity's history and most troublemakers decided to take their business elsewhere. Greg never disagreed with her. If their reputation kept the peace, he was happy to accept it. Everything changed on a quiet Tuesday morning. The sensor operator, a young human named Danny Chen, noticed 3 ships approaching the station. They were not broadcasting proper identification codes. They were not following standard approach vectors. Danny immediately alerted Greg. Greg looked at the sensor data and felt his stomach tighten. He recognized those ship designs. Kravik raiders, pirates who had terrorized the frontier for decades. They attacked small stations and ships, stealing cargo and taking prisoners to sell as slaves. The council knew about them but did little to stop them. The frontier was too far away, too unimportant. Greg followed council protocols. He sent out a distress signal. He began evacuation procedures, moving civilians to the safest parts of the station. He prepared to surrender if necessary. The protocols were clear. Civilian stations should not fight. They should protect lives by any means necessary, even if that meant giving up cargo or equipment. But Greg also knew the reality. Council peacekeepers might arrive in a week or two. By then, everyone on Kepler Station could be dead or enslaved. The Kravik were not known for mercy. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who resisted. Sometimes they killed people just for entertainment. Kate appeared beside him on the command deck. She did not say anything. She just placed her hand on the weapons console they had secretly installed 3 months ago. It was against council regulations. Civilian stations were not supposed to have military-grade weapons. But Greg had decided that council regulations were written by people who had never faced real danger. The other human crew members moved to their battle stations. Nobody questioned Greg's unspoken decision. Nobody suggested they should wait for council peacekeepers. They all understood the situation. They had 200 innocent people on this station, humans and aliens alike, and the Kravik were coming to hurt those people. The alien civilians watched in confusion and growing fear. This was not how civilized beings responded to threats. You were supposed to negotiate. You were supposed to surrender if necessary. You were supposed to wait for authorities. You did not prepare to fight. Fighting was primitive. Fighting was what predators did. The lead Kravik ship sent a message. The voice was rough and arrogant. The message was simple. Surrender all valuable cargo. Prepare to be boarded. Anyone who cooperated would probably live. Anyone who resisted would die painfully. The Kravik gave them 5 minutes to comply. Greg waited 3 minutes. He wanted the Kravik ships closer. He wanted them confident and careless. He watched the sensor display as they approached. Kate's fingers hovered over the weapons controls. The other crew members were silent and focused. Time seemed to slow down. When the lead ship was exactly where Greg wanted it, he gave Kate a single nod. She pressed the firing button without hesitation. The railgun they had installed fired a solid metal slug at incredible speed. The projectile crossed the distance between the station and the Kravik ship in less than 2 seconds. It punched through the ship's shields like they were paper. It cored through the bridge section and kept going, exiting the other side. The Kravik ship went silent. No more transmissions. No more threats, just a dead hulk floating in space. The other 2 Kravik ships immediately changed course, trying to scatter. But Kate had already calculated their possible escape routes. She fired again, and again. The station's point defense systems, normally used to destroy small asteroids, had been upgraded with human military technology. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to. The second Kravik ship took 3 hits to its engine section. The engines exploded in a brief flash of light, then went dark. The ship began drifting, slowly pulled by the gas giant's gravity. The third ship managed to turn and run. Its captain had finally realized these humans were not helpless prey. They were predators defending their territory. Greg opened a communication channel. His voice was calm and steady. He spoke slowly so the translation computers could keep up. His message was directed not just at the fleeing ship, but at anyone who might be listening on pirate channels. Word spread fast in the criminal underworld. Kepler Station is under human protection. Anyone who threatens our station, our crew, or our guests will be treated as hostile. We do not retreat. We do not negotiate with pirates. We do not wait to be rescued, we fight. And we win. The third Kravik ship jumped to hyperspace and disappeared. The battle was over. It had lasted less than 10 minutes. Greg felt the tension drain from his body. He looked around the command deck. His crew looked tired but satisfied. They had protected the station. They had saved lives. They had done their duty. The alien civilians slowly emerged from the safe zones. They looked at the humans with new eyes. Fear, yes, but also something else, respect, maybe even gratitude. They had just witnessed something their own species would never do. The humans had fought for them, had risked their own lives to protect strangers. Kate began damage assessment. The station had taken no hits. All systems were functioning normally. They had achieved total victory with 0 casualties. Greg allowed himself a small smile. Then he began preparing his report for Earth Command. And for the Council. This was going to cause problems. Big problems. But he would face those problems when they came. Right now, everyone on Kepler Station was safe. That was all that mattered. The footage from the battle spread across the galactic network within hours. Someone on the station had recorded everything and shared it. Soon, millions of beings across hundreds of worlds were watching the same scene. Humans defending their station with calculated, efficient violence. Humans refusing to be victims. Humans acting like the apex predators they truly were. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson, and the Council was about to face a very difficult conversation. The video from Kepler Station played on screens across the galaxy. Everyone watched it. Everyone had an opinion. The footage showed the human station commander calmly ordering the destruction of 3 pirate ships. It showed the precision of human weapons. It showed the cold efficiency of human combat tactics. And it showed something that most civilized species had never seen before: humans protecting others through violence. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Silverwing was furious. The Velkari counselor stood before the assembly and demanded immediate action. Humans had violated multiple protocols. They had engaged in unauthorized military action. They had demonstrated exactly the kind of predatory behavior that made them dangerous. They should be expelled from the Council immediately. Other counselors agreed. The humans were too violent, too primitive, too unpredictable. They needed to be contained, controlled, or removed entirely. The vote to expel humanity seemed certain. Almost everyone expected it to pass easily. Jake Morrison returned to the council chambers. But this time Sophie Bennett came with him. So did a security detail of 6 human soldiers. They wore dress uniforms, but everyone knew they were combat veterans. The humans were not coming as supplicants anymore. They were coming as members defending themselves. Jake did not apologize. Instead, he presented data on screens for everyone to see. The Kravik had attacked 12 stations in the past year. They had killed hundreds of civilians. They had enslaved thousands more. And Council peacekeepers had not prevented a single attack. Not one. Their response time was measured in weeks, sometimes months. By the time they arrived, the criminals were long gone and the victims were dead or missing. Jake spoke clearly and calmly. He explained that Commander Patterson had followed his primary duty, which was protecting the people on his station. He had sent distress signals as required. He had prepared to evacuate as required. But he had also recognized that those measures would not save anyone. The only thing that could save his people was direct action. So he took that action, and yes, Jake continued, humans had killed the attackers. They had destroyed ships. They had ended lives, because that was what you did when predators threatened innocents. You did not negotiate with them. You did not wait for help that would arrive too late. You fought. You protected. You did what was necessary. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Half the delegates were shouting in anger. The other half were shouting in agreement. Silverwing tried to restore order but could not be heard over the noise. The careful, civilized atmosphere of the council had shattered. For the first time in centuries, real disagreement had broken out. Finally, a small voice cut through the noise. It belonged to Merchant Vela, a Karuvian trader. Karuvians were peaceful beings who traveled the galaxy buying and selling goods. They were not warriors. They were not politicians. They were simple traders trying to make a living. And the Kravik had destroyed 3 Karuvian ships in the past 6 months. Vela stood on his platform, his hands shaking. He was terrified to speak before the council. But he had something to say. He asked a simple question. Why were they condemning the humans for protecting innocent people when the council had failed to do so? Why were they so concerned about human violence but not concerned about pirate violence? Why was it acceptable for criminals to kill and enslave but unacceptable for humans to fight back? The question hung in the air. Nobody had a good answer. Silverwing tried to explain that the council followed strict protocols, that military action required proper authorization, that civilized beings did not resort to violence as a first option. But the words sounded hollow even as they were spoken. Everyone knew the truth. The council's protocols protected the criminals more than the victims. More delegates began to speak. Representatives from frontier worlds shared their own stories. Pirates had attacked their stations too. Raiders had stolen from their ships. Criminals had operated freely in their systems. And council peacekeepers had done nothing, or arrived too late, or filed reports that went nowhere. The humans had done in 10 minutes what the Council had failed to do in decades. They had made the frontier safer. They had sent a message to every criminal organization in the galaxy. Attack human-protected assets and you die. Simple, direct, effective. The debate continued for hours. Silverwing and the older council members argued for strict adherence to protocols. Frontier delegates argued for practical security measures. Trade representatives pointed out that commerce was being strangled by piracy. Military advisors quietly admitted that council peacekeeping forces were inadequate for the galaxy's actual security needs. Finally, a compromise was proposed. Humanity would not be expelled, but they would face new restrictions. Any use of military force must be reported in detail within 24 hours. Human security forces would be limited in size and scope. Human weapons technology would be monitored closely. Independent observers would be stationed at key human facilities. Jake accepted these terms. He bowed respectfully to the council. He thanked them for their wisdom and understanding. Sophie stood beside him, maintaining a neutral expression. The security detail remained silent and professional. To outside observers, it looked like a fair compromise. The humans would remain in the council, but under careful watch. But privately, back in their quarters, Jake and Sophie discussed the real outcome. The council had blinked first. They had backed down. They had not expelled humanity because they could not afford to. Too many frontier worlds now saw humans as protectors. Too many traders preferred human-managed stations. Too many civilians felt safer knowing humans were nearby. The restrictions were meaningless. Humans would report their military actions as required, but they would continue protecting their assets and their allies. The monitoring would find nothing illegal. The observers would see only professional security forces doing their jobs. But everyone would know the truth. If you threatened humans or their friends, you would face consequences. Real consequences. Immediate consequences. Within days, the first contract offers arrived. Frontier colonies wanted to hire human security consultants. Trading companies wanted human guards on their ships. Station managers wanted to learn human security protocols. The demand was overwhelming. Earth's government carefully vetted every contract, making sure only qualified professionals took these jobs. They did not want mercenaries or criminals representing humanity. They wanted soldiers, police officers, and security experts who understood rules of engagement and proper use of force. Admiral Lisa Cole coordinated the response from Earth. She established training programs for security contractors. She created guidelines for engagement rules. She made sure every human working in galactic security understood they represented all of humanity. They had to be professional, disciplined, and ethical. But they also had to be effective. The galaxy was watching. Commander Greg Patterson became somewhat famous. He gave interviews explaining his decisions at Kepler Station. He was calm and reasonable, never boastful or aggressive. He emphasized that humans did not want to fight. They preferred peace, but they would not allow innocents to be harmed when they had the power to prevent it. This was not about glory or violence. It was about duty and protection. The message resonated across the galaxy. Species that had been victimized by criminals for generations began to understand. Predators did not just hunt. They also protected. The same instincts that made humans dangerous also made them reliable defenders. You could trust a human to fight for you because fighting for others was encoded in their evolutionary history. And in the dark corners of space, criminals learned a new rule. Avoid humans. Avoid their stations, their ships, their protected assets. The payoff was not worth the risk, because humans did not negotiate. They did not wait. They fought. And they won. 2 years after the Kepler Station incident, the galaxy faced a new threat. They came from beyond the edge of known space. They called themselves the Kralneth. They were warriors from a world even harsher than Earth. They had evolved fighting for every resource, every piece of territory, every moment of survival. And they looked at the Galactic Council as easy prey. The first warning came from a frontier colony. Their distress signal was brief and panicked. Unknown ships had appeared. Weapons fire, explosions, then silence. By the time a council ship arrived, the colony was destroyed. Buildings were rubble. Ships were debris. 30,000 people were gone. No survivors. No prisoners. Just death and devastation. 2 more colonies fell in the next week. The pattern was always the same. The Kralneth appeared without warning. They destroyed everything with brutal efficiency. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They did not seem interested in resources or territory. They just attacked, destroyed, and moved on to the next target. The Council finally mobilized its peacekeeping fleet. 12 ships, the largest force assembled in decades, moved to intercept the Kralneth. The fleet commander was confident. They had superior numbers. They had advanced technology. They would demand the Kralneth leave Council space immediately. If the aliens refused, the Council would demonstrate their strength. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Kralneth ships were smaller and fewer in number, but they moved with perfect coordination. Their weapons hit with devastating accuracy. Their tactics were aggressive and unpredictable. They did not follow any rules of civilized warfare. They simply attacked the weakest targets first, destroying them quickly, then moved to the next. The Council fleet never had a chance. 8 Council ships were destroyed completely. 3 more were crippled and drifting. Only 1 managed to escape and return to Council space. The surviving crew members were traumatized. They described the Kralneth as merciless killers who showed no hesitation, no mercy, no fear. The Council finally understood they were facing a real military threat, and their peacekeeping forces were not prepared for it. Admiral Lisa Cole received the emergency transmission at her headquarters on Earth. She was now the senior military officer for all human forces. She read the reports carefully. She studied the footage from the battle. She analyzed the Kralneth tactics, and she understood immediately what the Council was facing. These were not pirates or raiders. These were professional warriors who had perfected the art of violence over thousands of years. The Council sent a formal request to Earth. They needed help. They needed human military expertise. They needed the apex predators they had once feared and tried to control. Silverwing made the request personally. The proud Velkari counselor spoke with humility, admitting the Council had been wrong about many things. They needed humanity now. Would the humans help them? Lisa did not hesitate. She immediately began the largest military mobilization in human history. Every reserve unit was activated. Every ship was recalled from patrol. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member was called to duty. Within 48 hours, Earth's military forces were assembling for war. But Lisa did more than mobilize the official military. She sent messages to every human security contractor, every mercenary company, every private military organization scattered across the galaxy. The message was simple. Humanity protects its own, and after 2 years of living among them, the Council species were humanity's own now. Any human who could fight was needed. Come home, come help. Come defend those who cannot defend themselves. The response was overwhelming. Greg Patterson left Kepler Station and led a volunteer fleet to join Earth's forces. Kate Hughes and most of her crew went with him. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Veterans put on their old uniforms. Retirees reported for duty. Civilians with military experience volunteered without being asked. This was what humans did when their friends were threatened. They fought back. The Council representatives watched in amazement. Other species talked about unity and cooperation. Humans actually demonstrated it. They transformed from a collection of independent colonies into a unified force in just days. This was the advantage of being from a death world. When survival was threatened, humans knew how to work together. They had millions of years of practice. 3 weeks after the Council's defeat, the Kralneth attacked another world. This time they found Admiral Lisa Cole's 5th Fleet waiting for them. The human fleet was smaller than the Council force had been. Only 8 ships. But these were warships designed by people who understood combat, and they were crewed by soldiers who had trained for this moment their entire lives. The Kralneth expected another easy victory. They attacked with the same aggressive tactics that had destroyed the Council fleet. But the humans did not fight like the Council. They did not form neat lines and exchange fire at comfortable distances. They scattered and regrouped. They used the asteroids and moons as cover. They attacked from unexpected angles and retreated before the Kralneth could respond effectively. Lisa Cole was fighting the way ancient humans had hunted on the plains of Africa. She was using persistence tactics. Wear down the prey. Make them expend energy. Strike and retreat. Strike and retreat. Never give them a moment to rest or recover. Keep constant pressure until they make a mistake. Then exploit that mistake ruthlessly. The battle lasted 14 hours. The Kralneth kept trying to force a decisive engagement. They wanted a straightforward fight where their superior weapons and aggression would guarantee victory. But Lisa refused to give them that fight. She kept her ships moving, kept changing positions, kept striking from new directions. The Kralnith burned fuel chasing targets. They wasted ammunition on ships that were no longer there. They grew frustrated and made errors. When the Kralnith finally committed their entire force to one attack, they found themselves in a trap. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids where they had been hiding. More ships appeared from the shadow of a gas giant. The Kralnith were suddenly surrounded, caught in a crossfire with no easy escape route. Lisa had turned the entire system into a hunting ground, and the Kralnith were the prey. The humans lost 3 ships in the fighting, 3 crews dead, hundreds of people who would never go home. Lisa felt each loss personally. But the Kralnith lost 9 ships. For the first time since entering Council space, they had been defeated. For the first time, they had faced an enemy that fought as fiercely and as intelligently as they did. The surviving Kralnith ships retreated to hyperspace. Lisa did not pursue. She reorganized her fleet and began preparations for the next battle, because this was just the beginning. The Kralnith would be back. They would be angry and they would be more careful. But they would come back. Warriors always did. Across the galaxy, every species watched recordings of the battle. They saw human ships moving with precision and purpose. They saw human tactics that were aggressive but controlled. They saw humanity fight and win against an enemy that had seemed invincible, and they finally understood what Jake Morrison had tried to explain 2 years ago. Being an apex predator was not about being violent or cruel. It was about being effective. About doing whatever was necessary to protect your pack, your family, your allies. Humans had evolved to be survivors, and now they were using those survival instincts to protect an entire galactic civilization. The Council had learned its lesson. They stopped trying to restrict human military capabilities. Instead, they asked for human advisors to train their own forces. They requested human tactical manuals. They wanted to learn how to fight like humans did. Because in a dangerous universe, sometimes the best defense was a good offense, and nobody understood offense better than Earth's apex predators. The war against the Kralnith lasted 3 years. 3 long years of battles across dozens of star systems. Admiral Lisa Cole commanded an ever-growing fleet. Ships from Earth joined forces with volunteers from Council worlds. Species that had never fought before learned human combat tactics. Former prey animals discovered they had teeth after all. Greg Patterson became famous throughout the frontier. He led mixed fleets of humans and aliens in dozens of successful missions. His reputation for protecting civilians made him a hero to millions. Kate Hughes earned her own command, a destroyer that she named Defender. She proved that human tactics could be learned by anyone willing to train hard enough, but the war was costly. Every battle meant losses. Ships were destroyed. Crews died. Lisa kept detailed records of every person killed under her command. The list grew longer every month. She felt the weight of each name. But she also knew that stopping the Kralnith was necessary. If they did not fight now, millions more would die later. The Kralnith adapted to human tactics over time. They learned to expect ambushes. They became more cautious. They stopped assuming every battle would be easy. But humans adapted too. Lisa constantly changed her strategies. She studied every engagement, learned from every mistake, refined her approach. This was what apex predators did. They evolved. They improved. They survived. What surprised the galaxy was not just the military victories. It was how humans fought. They never abandoned wounded soldiers. They risked entire fleets to rescue trapped civilians. They shared their knowledge freely with allied forces. They treated prisoners with respect and dignity. The Kralnith fought for conquest and glory. Humans fought to protect others. That difference mattered. The turning point came in the 3rd year. The Council had been fighting defensively, trying to protect their worlds from invasion. But Lisa proposed something radical. She wanted to take the war to the Kralnith homeworld itself. She wanted to invade their territory and force them to defend their own space. It was a dangerous plan. It violated every rule of Council military doctrine. You did not invade warrior species on their home ground. But the Council was desperate. 3 years of war had exhausted them. Their economy was suffering. Their people were tired. They needed the war to end. So they approved Lisa's plan. She assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all unified under human command. all ready to follow Lisa into the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted. The journey to Kralnith space took 2 months. 2 months of constant preparation, training exercises, supply checks, tactical briefings. Lisa wanted everyone ready for what was coming. She knew the Kralnith homeworld would be heavily defended. She knew many ships would not return. But she also knew this was the only way to end the war decisively. When they finally arrived at Kralnith Prime, the defenses were even stronger than expected. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Defense fleets patrolled in perfect formations. Ground-based missiles tracked every approaching ship. The Kralnith had prepared their homeworld for exactly this kind of attack. They were ready. The battle lasted 2 days. 48 hours of continuous combat. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Weapons fire crossed space in deadly patterns. The Kralnith defenders fought with desperate fury. They knew if they lost here, they lost everything. They threw everything they had at the invading fleet. Lisa's fleet took heavy casualties. Dozens of ships destroyed. Thousands of crew members killed. But they kept coming. This was the human persistence hunting instinct on a galactic scale. Never give up. Never retreat. Keep pressing forward no matter the cost. The Kralnith had never faced an enemy with this level of determination. Greg Patterson's group attacked the left flank. Kate Hughes led the assault on the right. Lisa commanded the center, pushing straight toward the heaviest defenses. The 3 human commanders worked in perfect coordination, each supporting the others, creating openings that the alien crews could exploit. It was a masterpiece of combined arms warfare. When the last orbital defense platform went silent, Lisa opened a communication channel directly to the Kralnith leadership. Her officers expected her to demand unconditional surrender, expected her to threaten total destruction. But Lisa surprised everyone, including her own crew. She offered terms. Not surrender, but peace. The Kralnith had fought well. They had proven themselves as warriors. They deserved to survive with honor. If they would agree to stop attacking Council worlds, to respect established boundaries, to solve disputes through negotiation instead of violence, then humanity would withdraw. No occupation. No punishment. Just peace and mutual respect. The Kralnith Warmaster was silent for a long moment. He had expected destruction or slavery. Those were the only outcomes warriors understood. But these humans were offering something different. They had defeated his forces completely. They could destroy his world if they wanted. But instead they offered peace, honor, survival. The Warmaster accepted. Not because he was afraid, though fear was certainly present. He accepted because he recognized something in Lisa's voice. She spoke as one warrior to another. She understood that true strength included knowing when to stop fighting. She had proven her people were apex predators. Now she was proving they were also wise leaders. The news spread across the galaxy instantly. The war was over. Humanity had won. They had defeated the greatest military threat the Council had ever faced, and they had done it without destroying their enemy or claiming their territory. They had shown that being an apex predator did not mean being a monster. The Council convened one final time in the Great Chamber. Silverwing stood before the assembly, but the proud Velkari looked different now, less arrogant, more humble. The counselor spoke about how wrong they had been about humanity, about how their own civilization had grown soft and weak over millennia of peace, about how humans had saved them not just through military strength, but through their understanding of what true protection meant. Jake Morrison addressed the council again. But now he spoke as Earth's ambassador, as a full equal. He talked about the future, about cooperation between predator and prey species, about how diversity of thought and approach made everyone stronger, about how the galaxy needed both the Council's wisdom and humanity's strength. The Council voted unanimously to restructure its government. Human military doctrine would be taught throughout Council space. Human security advisors would help train defense forces. And humanity would have permanent seats on all major Council committees, including security and defense. The restrictions that once limited human actions were removed. Earth was now a full and equal member of galactic civilization. Admiral Lisa Cole retired after the war. She had spent 3 years in constant combat. She was tired. She had lost too many good people. She wanted peace. She accepted a teaching position at the new Galactic Defense Academy on Earth, where she would train the next generation of military leaders from hundreds of species. Greg Patterson returned to Kepler Station. The small outpost had become famous as the place where humans first showed their true nature. Thousands of aliens visited each year, wanting to understand human culture. Greg welcomed them all. He was happy to explain that being apex predators did not make humans special. It just made them good at protecting others. Kate Hughes continued her career in the military. Her ship Defender patrolled the frontier regions where danger still lurked. But those regions were much safer now. Pirates and raiders had learned their lesson. Do not mess with humans or their allies. The cost was too high. Across the galaxy, species that once feared humans now trusted them. They understood that apex predators made the best guardians, because predators understood both the capacity for violence and the responsibility to control it. They knew when to fight and when to show mercy. They protected those who could not protect themselves, not because they had to, but because it was right. The day humanity proved to the galaxy what a true apex predator was turned out to be, thousands of days. Thousands of moments of courage and sacrifice. Thousands of decisions to protect rather than destroy. And in the end, the galaxy learned the most important lesson. The most dangerous predators were not those who killed without thinking. They were the ones who chose carefully when to fight and when to protect, who understood that strength meant defending the weak, and who never forgot what it meant to survive against impossible odds. 5 years had passed since the end of the Kralneth War. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Human influence spread through every sector of council space, not through conquest or force, but through cooperation and trust. Species that once viewed humans as dangerous primitives now requested human advisors, human teachers, human protectors. The Galactic Defense Academy on Earth had become the most prestigious military school in known space. Students from hundreds of worlds studied there. They learned human tactics and strategy, but more importantly, they learned the human philosophy of defense. Strength was not about domination. It was about protection. Power was not about conquest. It was about responsibility. Admiral Lisa Cole walked through the academy grounds every morning. She was older now, her hair showing more gray, but her eyes were still sharp and alert. She taught advanced strategy to senior students. She shared her experiences from the war. She made sure every graduate understood that being a warrior meant more than knowing how to fight. It meant knowing when to fight and when to seek peace. Her most famous lesson was simple. She would ask students from prey species to describe their greatest fear. They would talk about predators, about being hunted, about violence. Then Lisa would explain that humans as apex predators had those same fears, because humans had not always been at the top of the food chain. They remembered what it was like to be prey. That memory made them better protectors. Kepler Station had grown into a major hub. What started as a small refueling outpost was now a bustling city in space. Thousands of residents from dozens of species called it home. Greg Patterson still ran the station, though he now had a staff of hundreds. He was considered one of the founding heroes of the new galactic order, but he remained humble about his role. When young humans asked Greg about the pirate battle that made him famous, he always told them the same thing. He had just done his duty, nothing more. Any human in his position would have made the same choice. Protecting others was not heroic. It was simply the right thing to do. That attitude resonated across the galaxy. Humans did not seek glory. They sought purpose. Kate Hughes commanded the Defender on Deep Space Patrol. Her crew was mixed now, humans and aliens working together seamlessly. Her ship had become a legend on the frontier. Pirates and raiders knew the Defender by sight. When it appeared in a system, criminals fled immediately. Kate had proven that human military doctrine could be learned by anyone, regardless of species. Her alien crew members fought as effectively as any human soldiers. But the Defender was not just a warship. Kate used it to deliver medical supplies to remote colonies, to rescue ships in distress, to help rebuild stations damaged by accidents or natural disasters. She believed that true strength meant being ready to fight, but choosing to help whenever possible. Her crew shared that belief. They were warriors, yes, but they were also caregivers and protectors. Jake Morrison served as Earth's chief ambassador to the Council. He attended every major meeting. He helped negotiate treaties. He resolved disputes between member species. His calm demeanor and reasonable approach made him effective. But everyone knew that behind the diplomat was someone who understood human military capability. That knowledge gave his words weight. Jake often reflected on how much had changed since that first council meeting 6 years ago. Back then, humans were supplicants begging for acceptance. Now they were leaders helping shape galactic policy. The transformation had not come from aggression or demands. It came from consistent action. Humans proved themselves through deeds, not words. The Kralneth integration surprised everyone. After the war, many expected the warrior species to retreat into isolation. Instead, they requested permission to join the council as full members. They wanted to learn from humans. They recognized that humanity had demonstrated a form of strength they had never encountered. The strength to show mercy after victory. A Kralneth delegation visited Earth. They toured human cities. They studied human history. They were fascinated by how humans had transformed from primitive hunters into spacefaring civilization. The Kralneth saw parallels with their own evolution. Both species came from harsh worlds. Both had survived through strength and determination. But humans had learned something the Kralneth were only now discovering. True apex predators protected more than they destroyed. The Kralneth war master who had surrendered to Lisa Cole became an ambassador. He worked to help his people transition from pure warriors to defenders of peace. It was difficult. Kralneth culture was built on combat and conquest, but slowly, with human guidance, they began to understand. Warriors could serve a higher purpose than simple violence. Silver Wing, the Velkari counselor who had once wanted humans expelled, became one of humanity's strongest supporters. The change was remarkable. Silver Wing now spoke about how the council had been weak and naive before humans arrived. They had built a civilization on the assumption that intelligence meant the end of violence. Humans proved that intelligence meant controlling violence, not eliminating it. Silverwing visited Earth once. The Velkari counselor walked through human museums showing the history of warfare, saw weapons that ranged from stone spears to nuclear missiles, learned about conflicts that had shaped human civilization, and finally understood. Humans had not transcended their violent nature. They had channeled it, controlled it, used it only when necessary. That made them more civilized than species who simply avoided conflict. Crime rates dropped across the galaxy, not because of increased enforcement, though human security training helped, but because criminals learned an important lesson. The galaxy had guardians now, real guardians who would hunt you down if you hurt innocents. The protection humans offered was not abstract or distant. It was immediate and personal. Trade flourished under the new security. Ships traveled routes that were once too dangerous. Colonies were established in frontier regions. The galactic economy grew stronger every year. Peace through strength became more than a slogan. It became reality, and at the center of that reality were humans, the apex predators who chose to protect rather than dominate. Sophie Bennett wrote a book about humanity's integration into galactic society. It became required reading at schools across hundreds of worlds. The book explained how humans succeeded not by being the smartest species or the strongest species, but by being the most adaptable. They learned from everyone. They shared with everyone. They fought when necessary and made peace when possible. That flexibility was their true strength. Children across the galaxy grew up learning about human heroes. Not fictional characters, but real people like Lisa Cole, Greg Patterson, and Kate Hughes. These were individuals who had faced impossible odds and prevailed through courage and determination. They became role models for species that had never had military heroes before, because humans showed that warriors could be honorable, ethical, and compassionate. A new generation of humans grew up among the stars. They attended schools with alien children, they played sports with teammates from different worlds, they learned languages and customs from dozens of cultures, and they carried forward the values that had brought humanity to galactic prominence. Protect the weak, stand against injustice, fight when necessary but seek peace when possible. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Apex predators were not monsters to fear. They were not killers to be contained. They were protectors to be valued and allies to be trusted. Yes, they were dangerous. Yes, they could be violent when needed. But those qualities made them ideal guardians of civilization. Because sometimes the only defense against predators was other predators who chose to defend instead of destroy. Earth became known as the Guardian World. Not because humans sought that title, but because other species gave it to them. When disasters struck, human relief workers arrived first. When wars threatened, human mediators helped negotiate peace. When dangers emerged, human defenders stood ready to fight. They had proven themselves again and again. They were exactly what the galaxy needed. On Earth, in a quiet garden near the Galactic Defense Academy, a monument stood. It listed the names of every human who had died protecting the Council during the HFY War, thousands of names carved into black stone. Admiral Lisa Cole visited the monument every week. She would stand silently reading the names, remembering faces and voices. These people had given everything to protect others. They embodied the best of what humanity could be. The monument's inscription was simple. It said everything that needed to be said about humanity's place in the galaxy. The words were suggested by Jake Morrison, approved by the Council, and understood by every species who read them. We are apex predators from a death world. We evolved to survive impossible conditions. We learned to hunt, to fight, to overcome any obstacle. But we also learned something more important. We learned to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We learned that true strength means defending the weak. We learned that being dangerous does not mean being cruel. This is what makes us human. This is what makes us guardians. This is why the galaxy can trust us. And across the stars, in every corner of galactic civilization, beings of countless species read those words and understood. The day humanity proved what a true apex predator was had finally come. Not through a